All right, Symmetry Land, let's get this party started. Welcome to the National Sales Training. This is, my name is Zack Little, Director Kashawn Monteith, part of the Monteith Lynn Watkins hierarchy, and definitely excited to be here. Just want to give a big shout out to our founders for letting us be on this call, trusting us with this call, Brian, Casey, and Brandon. Definitely excited to be on this and share with you some of the things that we have to talk about. And, I came across this, I was talking to this bunch that I have with us, and it became apparent that we've got some major issues in this group. And I want to definitely bring them in to talk about some things that'll help us, help you get to that $20,000 issue mark a month, something that we're all striving to do. And, I've been here for since about 2017. I owned a concrete business before I started here. I worked on that for about 5 years, and unfortunately in that last year lost everything and was really in just a tough spot in my life, tough place. And man, am I glad that I answered that Craigslist ad and met Kashawn Monteith, met Symmetry Financial Group, and definitely changed my life. And I've got some people here that are also changing their lives for the better, absolutely on fire. And again, we've got some major issues here. So I want to introduce some of the people with me. Jenn Schmidt, agency owner out of Preston, Iowa. She's been with Symmetry a little under 4 years now. She's in the hat right now. You can see Jenn and Kevin, her husband, became agency owners in 2021. And last month, one of the first full-time months in the field, Jenn issued over 20,000. So big time month for her. I've also got Tori Shiu on this, key leader Tori Shiu. She's out of Fort Mill, South Carolina, only started about 1 month ago full time. So she's only got about 30, 45 days in this business, but doing huge things. Her and her husband, Wade Shiu, actually became key leaders earlier this year. So excited to hear from her. Her first full-time month in the field, over 23,000 issued. So definitely knows what she's doing. And I've also got some of the top producers in the Monteith group. Tim Hepburn out of Nashville, Tennessee. He's been with Symmetry for about 10 months and already has 140 APV submitted into opt last month, over 20,000 issued, and he's in his second month of key leader qualification. So big things coming out of him. And then last but not least, a top producer in the Monteith group, Timothy Ryssemus. He is actually out of Nashville, Tennessee, also just started about 5 months ago, and in 5 months already issued 130,000, submitted 130,000 and issued over 20,000 last month. So definitely got a lot of big things happening on this call. If you are brand new, maybe this is your first week, first month, first year, this is the time to get that pen, that pad, and take some notes here, because we've got some awesome things that we're going to talk about. And when we were meeting for this call, one thing that just kept coming up was how intentional these producers were to get to that 20K issue and the things that they did to be intentional about to get there. And so I'm going to ask a few questions here, and I'm going to start here with agency owner Jenn Schmidt. So Jenn, if you would introduce yourself, we're going to have this question here first. Being consistent is extremely important to your career at Symmetry. Tell me this, what are some of the ways that you stay focused on being consistent week after week, month after month?
Awesome. Thanks, Zack. I'm Jenn Schmidt. My husband, Kevin, and I are direct to Zack Little and Kashawn Monteith, and I'm fired up to be here today. So the things that have really helped me be consistent, I realized it kind of boiled down to three things. It's having something to chase. I need to have like a short-term goal that I'm running after. I need to have the schedule that supports that, and then the support that allows me to fulfill the schedule. So Kevin and I have 4 kids that are 12, 10, 3, and 2. So we definitely have to have a tight schedule and make sure that everybody's where they need to be at the right time and that all the supports are in place so that I can run full bore.
I love that. I love that. Getting the family on schedule to make sure that we keep that intentionality. I love that. And that's obviously some of the big things that help you get to that 20,000. Let's go to key leader, Tori Shiu. Key leader, kind of the same question there. What are some of the things that you've done to make sure that you're intentional about staying consistent week after week?
Thanks, Zack. Yeah, I'm very excited to be here as well. My husband, Wade, and I are direct to Kashawn and Johanna Monteith. And, character is doing what you said you would do long after that emotion is gone under which you made that decision. So many people get inspired to do something, but then that emotion is gone the next day or two. So a really good example that I have is this last conference that we had. I was really moved to make a decision after that altitude conference in Vegas. The emotion, though, fizzled out before I actually came full time. But I still came to Symmetry. Why? Because I follow well-planned decisions over following emotions. So if you tie that into your activity, we know it can be emotional dialing, getting hung up on, getting no-showed, or not making a sale. But I already know this going into each activity. So that helps me proactively prepare my mindset. So now that activity turns from potentially becoming emotional to just, I've got dial time from 4 to 7.
Good. Very good stuff there. I love the fact that you're talking about kind of putting those emotions to bed and staying to the plan, sticking with the plan. This helps us push through week after week. I love it. Let's go to Tim Hepburn. Tim, tell me this. You've been extremely consistent, and obviously you've got a lot of big things going just after a few short months here at Symmetry. Tell me this. What are some of the ways that you keep yourself consistent week after week?
So hi, Tim Hepburn, direct to Sue Tillison, the Miller Agency under Kashawn and Johanna Monteith. Thank you to all of those people, to the founders, everybody. I feel very, very blessed to be even among these amazing producers you see on the screen, but let alone on the national call. So things that I keep consistent. For me, the association cornerstone is big. I think that's why a lot of the conferences have been such a catalyst for me, knowing that I have people in my corner fighting with me. I also have some examples in my personal life and in my family. I have to give a shout out to my brother, especially for being so supportive, but setting the challenge for me and saying, you need to make the decision, and kind of exactly what Tora was saying, is just making the choice. After the emotion is gone, if you want to achieve anything, you have to make that choice. You have to decide. If you're in weightlifting, you can't just give up after 2 reps. Like you've made the decision to go all the way to 10, 15, whatever your goal is. And you just have to make that choice and trust yourself that you're going to do it, and be consistent with everything that you've decided that you've planned, you've committed to yourself, that you're actually going to do it. So I guess for me, everything just comes down to choice. Setting a plan and just following through on my word.
I love that, man. I love that. Talking about making that choice and then going after it. You talked about association also. When you have people in your corner, people rooting for you, it makes it a lot easier to go after those goals. Love it, Tim. Let's go another one. Timothy Ryssemus, tell me this, man. You've only been here a few short months. I mean, really just starting your career, but you've achieved some huge things. And I know you've got over 130,000 APV already submitted into OMP. Tell me this. What are some of the ways that you stay consistent week after week?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm also very grateful to be here and to be amongst all these awesome people. But some of the ways that I stay consistent, what I've learned is it's boundaries for me is the biggest thing that helps with that consistency. Your magnetism is only as strong as your boundaries are. And everything that I say yes to means I'm saying no to every other possibility. And practically what that looks like is just, I'm trying to run as many appointments as I can on my weekend run. And so I just know Friday, Saturday, Sunday, anything that comes up, anything that's a possibility, it's a no, right? And so that allows me to go into that weekend without having any other clutter, any other obligations, or anything else that's going to distract my attention from getting to my goal every single weekend. And the second thing is just vision. Jenn touched on it, right? And it's good to have your why in place. Like, well, why am I even doing this? Why do I care? And to remind yourself about that every single day. And it's really easy for me to get lost in a really big picture vision of the great, why, like what I want to be doing 5 years from now, 2 years from now. And sometimes for me, that can actually be more of a distraction because I'll just get caught up in this big why. But then at the end of the day, I still got stuff that I got to do today, right? And I still got dials I got to make and appointments I got to run. And then so taking that big picture why and boiling it down to a smaller, more concise goal of a month, a few weeks, and reminding myself of that on a daily basis is a huge proponent to staying motivated and focused.
I love that, man. I love that. And I really love what you said there, where you said, if this is a why, all these other things have to be a no. So if I'm going to put everything I have into working this weekend, all these other small distractions have to be a no, just by default. Great stuff. I love it. I love it. Now let's do this. So we talk about consistency, and obviously a big part of consistency is self-awareness and understanding tendencies that could slow you down, could get in the way, kind of like what you were saying there, Tim. Tell me this, and I'm going to go to Victoria Shiu on this one because she talked about those emotions and things that could slow you down. Tell me this, tell me a time that you became aware of some changes that need to be made in order to hit those goals and stay consistent.
Sure. So cornerstone number 4, which is what Tim had just talked about, is associating with the right people. And my husband always makes fun of me because every minute, I always say this, every minute I associate with the wrong people is 60 seconds that I can't associate with the right people. So when I was at a Nashville workshop, I heard Timothy Ryssemus doing live dials. And I realized at that moment that I needed to tweak my phone script. And because of that, my show ratio went up 13%. So I was aware that I had to do something with my phone script. It needed to be adjusted because I didn't feel comfortable in what I was saying. What I didn't realize, though, that going to this workshop was going to connect those dots. And that is exactly why we need to make sure that we associate with the right people.
Wow, such a strong point there, because we get lost in maybe the things where our old habits, friends. I know I used to play a lot of softball, a lot of golf before I started here, and it wasn't helping me at all. It didn't help my career go anywhere. And so when you associate with the right people, and obviously that workshop hearing Timothy help with the calls, it's huge. I love it. Let's go to Tim Hepburn. Tim, tell me about a time that you became self-aware of something that you needed to change.
I swear I'm not just trying to repeat everything Tori says. But she brought up the Nashville boot camp. I'll give you, the 2 examples that stand out most in my mind is around the first time when I was just starting, I was having a ton of trouble on the phone, so kind of similar. And I called my upline, I called Sue, and I said, hey, I'm having a lot of trouble. She says, well, run through the script with me over the phone. And so I did, and she said, you sound horrible. And I said, thank you. And she said, you need to fix this. And I was like, oh, okay. So, and then after that, everything improved. The other thing, the Nashville boot camp that was just talked about, that we've been doing in the Monteith Agency was huge for me. I was lucky enough to be at the first one with Timothy, and I remember Carlton Lear was saying, okay, what are your goals? And I said, this is my goal. And he said, what are your DCAs? How many dials, contact appointments? I said, well, I've made this many dials. And he said, well, you should probably, at least quadruple that, and maybe you'll hit your goal. And I was like, oh, it's that simple. So I thought, oh yeah, for sure, 50 dials in a week, I'll, hit my appointment goal, no problems. You just have to up your numbers. And I wasn't self-aware of that fact that I was so, not close to the mark that I was trying to hit. So I'm really grateful for having people in my agency here who are willing to point that out to me.
Good stuff, man. Sometimes you got to know how bad you are at something in order to improve it. So definitely good advice there from Sue. Let's go to you, Timothy Ryssemus. Tell me about a time that you became self-aware that you needed to make some changes.
Yeah, well, I love what you just brought up, Zach, about how you need to be aware of how bad you are at times. And in order to do that, there's got to be a foundation of self-acceptance and self-love, right? In order to look at it, but not identify with it, right? So it doesn't pull you down emotionally, but it's just kind of more matter of fact. There's been so many times that I've become aware of changes that I need to make and still do consistently every week. The big one for me is just with on a week-to-week basis, going back to that. It's all about consistency, right? But I seemed to have a lot of like 10K weeks or like a 1K week, and it was back and forth. And there was a lot of things that I was just realizing about how loose I would allow my schedule to be, and how loose I'd allow my boundaries to be. And if I have appointments spread out throughout the week, it doesn't really allow me to create the momentum that I want to create, as opposed to if I have, 15 to 25 appointments stacked Friday through Sunday, then it's like, even if I'm not closing every appointment, right? Then I still have a chance to get a win, which keeps me motivated to get the next win. And then, and wins always seem to happen back to back, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing for me, was just realizing that. And it was something that Carlton Lear had recommended to me months prior. So that was also a big thing, is just like actually paying attention and like taking the advice that's given to you, right? That's pretty huge. But yeah, just letting myself get really consistent and tight with my schedule and what I want to accomplish.
I like that. I think the point you're making up is 10 appointments throughout the week is not the same momentum as 10 appointments stacked on Monday and Tuesday, and getting that momentum to have win after win after win. Great point, Tim. All right, let's go to you, agency owner Jenn Schmidt. Tell me this, when is a time that you became aware that you need to make a change?
So I joined Kevin in the business back in September of 2018, and I was doing like part-time household CEO, part-time recruiting, and then in January of 21, I started producing part-time, and I wasn't doing any of it well. I wasn't able to give 100% to anything, and we had some conversations and decided that really my lack of belief was holding me back from doing a good job of recruiting and keeping people on our team. And it was like a huge block. So it was time. I had never gone all in on anything. I mean, aside from having my kids, I can't think of very many times where I had gone all in on anything. And unfortunately, after Matt Smith passed, I watched the Keys to Significance video on repeat alongside of Kevin. And we realized like we both needed to switch roles and go 100%, 110% on what we were doing. So that was the biggest shift for me, is going all in on production and, just not holding anything back. I'm the primary now income for our family, and I cannot take that commitment lightly.
I love that, Jen. I love that. Talking about part-time here, part-time here, part-time here, and none of it adds up to that full-time success that we want. And so you made those changes and obviously crushing it now. So good stuff, guys. I appreciate that. Let's get on to our next couple questions. We talked about so much intentionality, but intentionality in goals and numbers, because this is a numbers business. This is a business that is measurable, and we're always going for that next level. So tell me this, you're on this call because you've achieved a level of success that puts you at the top of those leaderboards. Now, I know issuing 20K, that starts with a goal. It starts with focusing on a number that we're going to hit. How did you use goal setting to achieve a 20K issue paid month? Let's go to you, Timothy Ryssemus. How did you use goals and numbers to hit that 20K month?
Yeah, well, for me, focusing on the process. And so, I mean, I do always want to have 30K submitted every single month, but if I just focus on goals that have to do with the process itself, like numbers of dials and number of appointments, that allows me to move more freely and be able to take care of each client in the way that they need to be taken care of. So I'm not trying to upsell someone that doesn't need to be upselled or something along those lines, right? But I just focus on my goal every single weekend is to have 25 appointments in the weekend. And I've only actually successfully done that one time. But every weekend it's my goal, because I mean, I know Jenn Schmidt closes like every single appointment that she sits on, right? Not necessarily the case for me, but I know that if I'm setting up 20 to 25 appointments every single weekend, then regardless of where the cards fall, I'm going to be inching towards my goal. And then on the weekend, it allows me to see, towards the end of the month or even after the weekend, if I'm a bit behind, then I can use a few days to get caught up.
I like it. So you're focusing on the activity that gets you to that 20K, not necessarily concentrating on the 20K, but the 25 appointments over the weekend that will undoubtedly get us to our goal. I like it, Tim. Good stuff. Let's go to you, AO Jenn Schmidt. Jenn, because you close every single appointment that you're in, I want to know, what are some things, how are you using goal setting to achieve those 20K months?
I do have a very high in-appointment close ratio. It's not 100%, but it is really high. I mentioned earlier needing to have something to chase, and that's really what keeps me focused. I'm not a great person at like intrinsic motivation, but I think self-awareness is so important. So if I have something to chase, I realize that's actually what helps me keep focused. So we were qualifying for an agency trip this past month, and my family had already done all of the things that they needed to do to qualify, and I had to issue at least 21,000 in order to qualify for the trip. So I put my head down and I put my head down and got to work. I'm not great on the phone. I really am not. My superpower is connecting with people in appointments. So the biggest thing that I did was actually learning how to track my business. I was super nervous because in October, I think I submitted like 17,000 and I only issued 5, which is not a good stat for anybody that's new out there. So I had to reach out to a colleague and get some help on how to track my business. So now after every appointment, I pull up my spreadsheet and I write down the client's name, the policy that I wrote for them, and then I go back to the carrier websites every day now, and I go back to that spreadsheet every day, and I'm marking the date that it's issued, and I'm marking the date that it's paid. I had to be obsessive and vigilant to make sure that all the work that I was doing was actually going to get me to qualify and actually going to get, money in the bank account. So I really use the tracking after the appointment as the way that I keep up with my goals.
Very good. I think being meticulous with your numbers is going to help you improve month after month, week after week. And obviously we had a huge shift from that $5,000 APV month to now over 20,000. It was just a few small changes of tracking those numbers to get to where we wanted to go. I love it. What about you, key leader Victoria Shiu? What are some of the ways that you use goal setting to achieve your numbers and achieve a 20K month?
Well, it's interesting. Kind of going off of what Timothy said, what I learned in pharmacy is you do need goals. I used to be in pharmacy prior to Symmetry. However, goals are not always numbers. I knew that I had to follow a process or a system in order to even begin to have those numbers go in the right direction. So here at Symmetry, I made a goal to perfect a process, dialing in the home, using core value number 1, relationships matter, and people come first. So my goal, not being a number, is to build value and rapport through asking those difficult questions.
Very good. So asking those questions obviously gets you to a point where we get that why, and then those appointments really count. Love it, Tori. Let's go with you, Tim Hepburn, man. Tell us this. You have been on fire these last few months. What are some of the ways that you're using goal setting to achieve those 20K months?
Yeah, kind of similar what has been said. I mean, I sat down with, had a one-on-one with my agency owner, Christy Miller. We just went through, okay, what do you want your Q4 to look like? And she said, if you hit this number, then this is how you're going to end the year. And I said, okay, and she said, let's break it down per week. And so she broke it down. She said, well, you'll just have to issue this much per week for your entire organization. And I just looked at her and I said, is that it? She said, yeah. I said, I want to up my goal. So I upped my goal. So it's kind of similar to Timothy, 30,000 a month for production, but also, not just production goals, but taking care of myself, not just my production bank account or my account at the bank, but my emotional bank account. Am I getting enough rest? Am I taking care of myself? Am I reading, personal development books? Am I, there's a lot that goes into it. And what I tell all my new agents is that this business will reveal you and show you your weaknesses and where you can improve. For me, a lot of it was taking care of myself and staying disciplined in all those areas, not just in production.
A great tool to use is breaking those goals down by week after week, day after day. And it's like, if I'm trying to hit key leader or something, if I just look at the task of issuing that, sometimes it's kind of daunting, but if I break it down by week, break it down by day, it actually becomes very obtainable, and you figure that out pretty quick. Love that, Tim. Good stuff there. And we're talking about intentionality. You know, it came down to something that you're going to hear at Symmetry over and over and over. This is going to come from the top. This is going to come from the bottom. And it was the biggest lesson that I had to learn here at Symmetry in order to get myself moving, because the first 6 months, I didn't have a whole lot of momentum. I wasn't creating consistency or anything. But once I figured this next step out, my business really took off. And a few months later, I was a key leader. A few months after that, an agency owner. And what we are talking about here is schedule. Controlling your schedule to get the maximum results and get to that 20K issue paid. And again, this was one of the toughest things for me. So when it comes to schedule, what are some of the things that you guys are doing to keep moving forward and keep that momentum rolling? Let's go to you, key leader Victoria Shiu. Tell me this, how do you keep that momentum rolling with your schedule?
Well, you know, we always say having a schedule doesn't matter if you're not going to do what the calendar tells you to do. So if you put dials in your calendar, but you go outside and mow the lawn, not very effective. So you definitely need to follow what your calendar says. Part of being a business owner is having that regular routine, right? But then also anticipating changes to that regular routine. And I'll go back to the pharmacy world again. You know, we always tell people when they come into pharmacy, you really have to be in it for a year to understand the business really well. Same thing for Symmetry. So working ahead of the holidays. In November, I already proactively planned and game planned ahead of those holidays, because I knew that we could potentially get objections. And we're in the middle of our AO run, and we certainly didn't want to miss it because we weren't proactively working ahead. So thinking about, if you did that, how relaxing would it be rolling into Thanksgiving week, knowing that you already exceeded your goal by 26%. Also, succeeding early means you have more cash flow to reinvest into your business. And so thinking about like December, it's a 5-week month, you know, oh, I only need to work 4 weeks, but you really probably should work 5 weeks because of planning ahead of the holiday, front loading the beginning part of that month, and then working with your team to do the same thing. That's the easiest way that we found to do our schedule. And it's definitely proven to be very fruitful.
It's such a tough spot for new people to navigate those holidays, especially through November and December. And when you have a plan like Tori's talking about, it makes it so much easier to get through that and hit your goals. So great point there. Let's go to Tim Hepburn. Tim, tell me this, man. What are some ways that you keep on task with your schedule to get to those 20K issue months?
Well, at Symmetry, our schedule is our new boss, right? So you have to trust ourselves and trust the plan and the choice that we made to do that. For me, you know, it's we talk a lot about work-life balance, but more like a work-life blend. For me, I incorporated Saturdays. Saturdays are one of the best days to get in touch with people. You know, setting appointments in the morning for the afternoon. You can schedule 4, 5, 6 appointments just on a Saturday afternoon, so you can get almost half your appointments done in a day. And you know, just with the metrics and all the data that we have that Symmetry provides over the past 12 years, we know, you know, so however many appointments is going to get me to my goal. So if I can do more of those faster, then that really helps out. So for me, yeah, trusting the schedule that I've put in place. I have certain days and certain times that I do interviews, certain days and certain times that I run appointments, and certain times I do dials. Yeah, I'll just schedule's the new boss.
Yeah, and maximizing those hot times, the times on Saturday morning when you're going to get the most people home and the most people who are going to want to set those appointments. So maximizing that time, I like it, Tim. Let's go to you, agency owner Jenn Schmidt. Jenn, tell me this. What are some ways that you maximize your schedule to get to those 20K months?
So once I found what worked, it just became the norm. It had to become non-negotiable, which meant in my household that everybody had to be on the same page. So the kids know that mom works on Saturdays, and during holiday stretches, I work on Sundays so that I can have more time with them when they're off of school. The other key piece for me, similar to what Timothy was mentioning earlier, I have to have my self-care in my schedule. That is one of the things that works for me that's the non-negotiable. So every day at 6 a.m. is like my quiet exercise, my personal development stuff. If I don't get that, I get really burnt out, and then it's easy for me to not stick to my schedule. So those two things, and then the third piece is I work on the weekends. It affects my mindset so drastically on Tuesday to have already hit my goals that it's completely worth it. Like I can spend half the time doing twice the amount of production, which really frees up my schedule. It is the choice that I love that, Tim, trust the choice that we made. And that's been a really good choice. So I'm going to keep trusting it.
Speed of trust. I love it. I love it. Let's go to you, Timothy Ryssemus. What are some ways that you maximize your schedule to get to those 20K months?
I think I just kind of resonate with what everyone else is saying about squeezing stuff in on the weekends because you can just get so much more done. But like the one thing that would help me with my mindset around that stuff, there's this thing called the 4 burners theory. And so if you imagine like 4 burners on a stovetop, right? So then you have work is one of the burners, family, friends, and then health. So you have these 4 burners. And so naturally they're all at 25%. You can't go above 100%. And so if you want to turn up one of the burners, like work, for example, right? If you want to really achieve, turn that up to 50%, 60, 70%, then you're gonna have to take away from some of the other burners. There's some caveats with it, like your health, you know what I mean? You want to keep that one in place because that's going to allow you to actually work well. But just realizing that in order to achieve for a season or for a day or for a week, you're going to have to turn down some of the other burners allows you to be cognizant of it. And then so you can communicate to the people in your life and communicate so that way you're able to maintain your relationships while focusing on work to get the results that you want. And then if you're able to optimize that, then you can get the results that you want in a 3-4 day period. And then the other days you just turn down work and turn up family, right? So that was something that I found really helpful for my mindset.
I love that analogy too, where you can only give 100%. You've got these 4 areas, so we've got to make sure that all these areas are hot enough to keep the water boiling. And Jen, you also made that great point of making sure that your family is on the same page. It doesn't do us any good to have a schedule if our whole family is not on this schedule, because then we've got a major problem. So I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. These are the top 4 issue paid producers for the Monteith Group, and thank you very much for helping us out. Symmetry, have a great Christmas, and definitely turn it up and follow what these guys are saying, because they have definitely proven that they can get to that 20K. We appreciate you. Thank you.